Hello and welcome to Swordpoint Stories. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the upcoming event at Warfare 2024. This is the Reading War Games Association's annual show, and this year it's being held on the 16th and 17th of November at the Farnborough International Exhibition and Conference Centre. This year the period is Dark Age, so that means you can take armies from the Dark Age, Charlemagne and Genghis Khan supplements. Army size is 1,000 points and the games are played on 6x4 tables. 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. Each year when I put the player pack together, I try and include something different in the scenarios to give the players a fresh challenge. Scenario 1 is a pitched battle. Both players roll a d6. The highest player chooses whether they are going to be the attacker or the defender. The players have 3 deployment map options, and the attacker gets to discard one of the 3 deployment maps. The defender then picks which one of the remaining 2 map options will be used for the game. The attacker then chooses a table side and places the terrain pieces on their half of the table in the positions indicated on the deployment map. The defender then places the terrain pieces on their half of the table, again in the positions indicated on the map. Next, the defender deploys half of their units, rounded up. Once this is done, the attacker then deploys all their units and commanders, and finally the defender then deploys all their remaining units and commanders. There are a couple of pre-game moves. First, the defender may move any troops with the special deployment rule up to 8 inches. The attacker may then move any troops with the special deployment rule up to 8 inches. There are a couple of special rules for this scenario. Firstly, the game begins in the initial phase. And secondly, the attacker starts the game with 6 momentum tokens and the defender starts with 4 momentum tokens. Scenario 2 is a version of the flank attack scenario. The terrain setup is the same as in Scenario 1, pitch battle, which I've just described. Once the terrain has been set up, then both players divide their armies into a main force and a flanking force. The main force must contain the overall army commander and must total at least 700 points. The flanking force must contain at least 1 commander and must total at least 100 points. Any commanders in the flanking force must be assigned to a unit. Both players draw maps for their deployment. Both players write down which short table edge their flanking force will arrive from. Players roll to see when or if their flanking force arrives. Pre-game moves. Troops with special deployment may make a full move after deployment before the battle begins. Special rules for this scenario. The game begins in the remaining moves phase and both players start with 5 momentum tokens. Scenario 3 is one called Chosen Ground. We have played this before. Both players are given 8 momentum tokens and players roll off with the highest roll becoming the first player. Starting with the first player, players take turns to place terrain in accordance with the following rules until both players pass. Cost 2 momentum tokens to place a piece of terrain wholly within your own deployment area, or 3 momentum tokens to place a piece wholly or partially outside your own deployment area. Each player can only place terrain on their own side of the table and may only place up to 2 pieces of the same terrain type. Player can spend 3 momentum tokens to remove one of their opponent's terrain pieces. Any remaining momentum tokens become the starting pool for that player. The special rules for this scenario are that deployment and pre-game moves are as per hidden deployment in the main rulebook, and the game begins in the remaining moves phase. The final game is a variation of the meeting engagement scenario. There are 6 pieces of terrain determined randomly. Players then roll off to see which side of the board they will deploy from. First player deploys all their skirmishers up to 18 inches from their long table edge. The second player then deploys all their skirmish units up to 18 inches from their long table edge, but no troops may be placed closer than 18 inches to an enemy unit. Then the first player deploys all their remaining units and commanders up to 12 inches from their long table edge. And then finally the second player deploys all their remaining units and commanders up to 12 inches from their long table edge. There are no pre-game moves in this scenario, and the game begins in the remaining moves phase. Tickets are still available, price £50. If you just want to come along to the show, our one-day ticket is £12. Once again, thanks for watching, and see you in the future for more Sword Point stories.